I was waiting for a few more people to come, but I'm going to start um, so that we can move on. Let me say namaste to everyone this afternoon, and we're so happy to see you here faithfully on Wednesday. I'm apologizing for the bishop. He had to go to New York, as you know he does, for his meetings. So he asked me to fill in for him, and of course I'm always happy to do that because I love all the folks here and want to share my little bit of knowledge with you. Today we want to focus on the concept of he who owns the definition owns the power. I'm going to say that again. He who owns the definition owns the power, which means that in the writing of the Bible, those persons who wrote inputs to the Bible, and there are several books in the Bible, used their own creativity and ownership of the writing of the Bible, and therefore they were able to determine or to establish the world in their own image and definition. Now, many people don't understand the importance of definition. If you say something is red and somebody else says it's white, and they set out to prove to you that it's white instead of red, they're taking ownership and control of your mind and allowing what they have to say about the situation to rule over you. Now, that's powerful in terms of people who want to come to an understanding, of the power of definition over people, organizations, and things. And I think I mentioned here a couple of weeks ago that the Bible was not in fact made available to the common citizenry until a long while after it had been completed. The monasteries in Europe wrote things into the Bible that favored them. And there's a story that has been made into a movie called The Name of the Rose. I don't know how many people have ever seen that movie, but The Name of the Rose was a movie about the austerity of monastery life and how one person's definition of what should exist held sway over a whole monastery, if not for a whole couple of countries. The gist of the story was that there was a monk who believed that laughter was deleterious to the saviorship of a person's soul. He believed that if you laughed, you were not serious about life. That anyone found laughing should be stopped from laughing because they were making mockery of God. That's how he felt. And there had been a series of murders at this given monastery because no one knew how the monks that died were dying. They saw no evidence of violence, no evidence that there had been foul play. But as the story was revealed, the books that the monks were creating, and back in the day, they used to do calligraphy on the books. They printed the books by hand, and many of them were written in longhand. They hadn't developed shorthand yet, but they were written in longhand. And the pages of the books in the copy rooms were written with lead ink. And you know lead is poisonous. So as the monks were working on the books, and there were certain books that he would bring in for them to write various passages from the Bible and whatever, they would wet their thumb to turn the page. In wetting their thumb to turn the page, they got some of the dust from the ink that was used to make the books, and that caused the monks to die. Now he conveniently placed the books where the monks could get them and designated that certain scriptures from the Bible, particularly the ones about laughter being a perspective of health and laughter being medicine, and he wanted those passages removed from the Bible so that no one around him would laugh. Everyone had to be solemn. Everyone had to be feeling lifeless. Now, you may have been to some churches where people do not say hallelujah. They do not say praise God. They sit with stony faces, and nothing seems to move them. I mean, the choir can get hot and people can dance, whatever, and they're sitting there like stone statues. I know you've seen that before. And that comes from some of those ancient traditions about laughter and about having what they call folly before God. Now, when the European went to Africa, he asked the more important Africans, which were the chiefs of the various villages and various branches of the different clans. He says, the European said, what is secular and what is sacred? So the Africans said, we don't understand what you mean. They said, well, what is religious to you? What's special spiritually to you? And what is entertainment? Well, the Africans said, well, all is spiritual to us. That there is nothing in the universe that God has not touched. Therefore, we don't distinguish between that which is sacred and that which is secular, because it's all God. It's all God. Which means that when they have a gathering of the chiefs from given areas, they come with horn blowers and drums and bells and people singing and throwing their fabric on the road for the chief to step on, and umbrellas, and people say, oh my goodness, such a beautiful display of culture. But they did not distinguish it in terms of what was secular and what was sacred. To the African, everything was sacred. Everything. Laughter, dancing, music, anything that was joyous was considered to be acceptable as a manifestation of God. So, in the story of The Name of the Rose, Sean Connery played the part of the monastic order that was sent to discover who was killing people in the monastery. And he caught the monk that was giving the poisonous books to the other monks to have them copied, and thus was able to stop the murders at the monastery. And the monk that was doing it tried to get away and didn't want to answer justice, and he fell over the wall of the monastery and landed on some spikes and died as a result of that. But the story itself is appropriate in terms of my lectures here on symbolism, because it shows how people can go to extremes to control people and circumstances around them. You have people that you know in your community who know that you are members of Imani Temple, and they look at you with a wry eye when they meet you. They have a little silly grin on their face, like they know something that you don't know. You say, no, it's the other way around. I know something that you don't know. See? And people will go to great lengths to prove you wrong or to tell you that what you believe is not true. The Savior said, I come not to judge, but I come that you might have life through me and be lifted up. And many people, human beings, have yet to understand that. They think Jesus came to judge. He didn't come to judge. He came to sacrifice his life that we might have life more abundant. And a lot of times people read the Bible, but there are symbols in the Bible, just like, who remembers the reading from Sunday about the serpents? I told you that a week, I think, before, that there was a perspective of the serpents and the stick. And the people who were being stung by the serpents were told, if in fact you will put away your graven images and cleave unto the word of God, if thou would look upon a stick that contains a serpent, you shall be healed. And that's what the reading was on Sunday. And I was talking to the bishop yesterday about it. He said, how does that happen that a person, and these two people have talked about it, because I hadn't seen the bishop since the time that I talked about the serpents. I hadn't seen him. He says, how does that happen? I said, it's called crescendo knowledge. People say, what is crescendo? You know, in music, you know what a crescendo is. It's when all the instruments come together and make a joyful noise, and it's a big noise. Well, when people come together and they are of like minds and they both preach the same truth, that's a crescendo, where people can say, did you know that you were going to say so-and-so? You say, no. Well, did you? No. But they come together and they dispensate knowledge without having talked to each other. And that's a metaphysical thing, and I'll come back to that. But it's important for us to understand that the owners and controllers of definition rule the world according to themselves. And here at Imani, we are fed on such wonderful wisdom and information that there are people in society who just are myth to understand what we understand. And you try to talk to them and tell them where you got this wisdom and knowledge, and they look at you like you're crazy. You know, and some of them will have the nerve to ask you, are you still involved with Imani Temple? You said, what do you mean? Well, I don't know how to put it. I said, we don't put it at all. And if you don't know how to put it, it's my own business. If you don't know how to put it, you know, it's like eating food at someone's table and you want the recipe before you eat the food. No, you can't do that. You know, you got to go through the process and then you'll know. Now, I have here a symbol that was taken from one of the books of Imani Temple membership. And it says that The name of this is an Adinkra symbol like the Inuit. It's called, let's see, let me use my eyeglasses on it. It's one of the more modern symbols. It's called Miniri Dani. Time changes. And you see what it looks like is one of the more contemporary Adinkra stamps. Now, Miss Williams, I think you saw her here on the weekend, was talking about at the Poetry Slam about the contest in terms of creating a contemporary Adinkra symbol to signify New World Africans. Because I personally did not know that there were so many people who never heard the term New World African. I mean, we live in the New World, we're African people, so that means that we're New World African people. And we come in all different sizes, shapes, and colors, but our ancestry is African. Many Africans have problems with the concept of New World Africa. This is New World Africa. I don't understand that. I says, well, you come from the old world, from the continent. Our ancestors came from the continent. I said, but many of our ancestors came here and created families and communities, and they are part of a whole new world of people that we must recognize as New World Africans. This is, in fact, an example of an Adinkra step that tries to bridge the gap in terms of the New World African. We can also look at the Sankofa bird with the head turned back, go back and fetch. That is maybe an appropriate adjunctive symbol for New World Africans. And we can have more than one symbol that represents New World Africans. But the thing of it is getting people to recognize them. And I'm sure you have all experienced the interposition and nullification of wisdom coming to you from this church and similar churches. People will say, well, I don't understand that, or that's not valid. You said, according to who? Because when people ask me that, I said, I have license. This is license from who? I said, from God. I said, God gave me an unusual amount of wisdom to share with his people. I said, and that's one of my reasons for being on the earth, is to share that knowledge with our people so that they can learn more about who they are and where they came from and what they do with themselves and what they do with their lives. Now, understanding metaphysics, and some people write metaphysics off as voodoo, okay? They said, well, you people believe in spirits and ancestors and whatever. I said, yes, we do. We pour libation. Some people think it's a sacrilege to pour libation on the altar when it's the most appropriate place because the spirits of our ancestors dwell there. But there's still many people who are seriously afraid of Halloween. They are. Halloween is coming, and they're scared to death because of so-called ghosts and whatever. Now, if you knew a person or several people when they were alive, and they loved you and you loved them, wouldn't you think they would not hurt you when they died? that they would keep on loving you and that they wouldn't turn on you because they went to the spirit world. It's ridiculous for people to think that way. But the fact remains that ancestors and people who have crossed over, like the bishop said the other day in his sermon, are still around. They haven't gone anywhere. And the way I know that they're around is by odors. There are certain odors that people had when they were alive, certain perfumes or incense oils, or certain foods that people like to eat, and you would always go to their house and smell that food. You said, that's so-and-so, or Mr. So-and-so. Mr. Jimmy always smoked a cigar. And you go around Mr. Jimmy's house or whatever, and you smell, you said, I smell cigar. And who's smoking the cigar? They said, we don't have anybody smoking a cigar. Mr. Jimmy in there. He is sitting up in there smoking a cigar and smiling at you. It's like I mentioned the other day about your favorite spoon. And I'll reiterate that in terms of people understanding that when you're cooking, you must be happy, or the happiness will not go into the food and the food won't taste good. Okay? When you go to church, you must leave cheerful or you miss the sermon. Why? Because you should internalize that and take it out and give it to someone else. Have you ever run into someone and you talk to them just for 5 or 10 minutes? They say, you know, you the sure enough truth for the day. You know, I was waiting for this word, and you the one that brought the word to me. But that's metaphysics. The ability to see and know spirit and to talk to people, to be about loving people. I went to a store one day and this lady just started hugging me. She says, I haven't had a hug in so long, I don't know what a hug looks like. She said, I don't feel good. She said, can I have a hug? I said, sure. I gave her a big hug and a kiss. She said, I feel so much better. You know, she said, because you have to understand the importance of coming together in fellowship, just like the Bible study on Wednesday. It's as much fellowship as it is studying the Bible. Because human beings need what? Other human beings. Now, understand that in traditional African religion, you do have spiritual forces that other people would consider to be ghosts. We don't consider them to be ghosts, because to be a ghost means you can't do any work for the living. But ancestors who have crossed over are constantly doing work for us. They're protecting us from evil. They're allowing us to grow. They're telling us that, you know, people say, something told me. Something. I said, who was something? Something told, and I'm betting you some coin that when you say something told me, that you can tell which relative it was that told you, because the one that told you all the time had passed over, but they always made sure they told you what was right. And you can name her, name him. It was Granddaddy, it was Miss Susie down the block. Miss Susie used to tell my mother on me all the time, maybe get a beating for going away from home. And I could always bet on Miss Susie telling on me. Melvin, I'm going to tell your mother. All the time. So it is such a joy to be able to live in the universe and not be afraid of what God has put here for our enlightenment. And metaphysics is very powerful and very strong. Some people are so how can I put it? Afraid. If I brought someone in here on a given Sunday and they possess the way they do in the religious shrines of our ancestors, voodoo, they'd call a paramedic. And in addition to calling the paramedic, they would also call security. They said the lady went crazy in the church. She was running from one end of the church to the other. She was screaming and hollering and going, oi, 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 oi. You know, and she got to be dangerous. She wasn't dangerous. The paramedics were dangerous. See? So, if we keep an open mind, and we keep a mind fixed on God and Spirit, then we can take those rich things, symbols, and perspectives of living and do wonders with them. Telling the young people what you want them to do. And I've done it so many times. Telling young people, I want you to be this, I want you to be that, I want you to get good grades. Speaking of Nico and, you know, all the little guys like Nico growing up, and they were not bad. Boys will be boys, but they grow up to be fine young people because you told them to, and they know that you were counting on them to be good. Now, you got mothers who curse their sons. You ain't no good. Your father wasn't no good. You ain't gonna be no good. They curse the girls and whatever. I told a group of girls not long ago, I says, in the village when girls are having babies, they make all the young girls in the village come and watch. No young girl is left out. And they let them know that one day you will cross this road and you will have to have a child like this. So get your rituals in order so that you'll know what to do and when to do it and how. I had a girl ask me one time, well, you said that the old ladies check the girls to see if they're virgins. I said, yes, before initiation. They said, well, they ain't no doctor. So how do they know whether a girl's a virgin or not? I said, well, you think now. I said, use your brain. Number one, the old lady used to be a virgin herself. Hello? I said, excuse me. And I said, she's seen enough young girls at her age to know a virgin when she sees one. So don't sell the old lady short, because the old lady can show you and tell you more about the virgins than the doctor, because the doctor don't know. See, the old lady has the secrets. A lot of people don't believe in holistic medicine. They don't believe in holistic knowledge. They don't believe in perspectives of metaphysics. They don't understand that they can make things move by sound. If you take a glass of water and you place it on a table and you take something that vibrates, like a vibrator or a massage instrument of some kind, and you put it there, you can see the vibrations of the sound and movement move that glass of water. And I mentioned before, that's how the Egyptians built the pyramids. They did it with sound. People say sound. Yeah, you see, you take 10,000 men and women, primarily men, and have them hum on a given day. You can move tonnage without a dump truck by way of the sound that the instruments make. If that be true, then people can heal people with sound by placing their hands on people and humming. Traditional people do it. I saw a piece on Scandinavian, they called it scat singing. The same way we're sitting here and I'm talking to you, someone in the audience would start a tune and everybody else would pick it up and find themselves feeling different by sharing the spirit of each individual in terms of that particular tune. So somebody said, well, did they write the tune? They says, no. They just let the tune come metaphysically. And they use the tune to improve the well-being of the people who are present. Now, some people say, well, these are Scandinavian people. What do they know about this kind of activity? They know a lot about it because they know that they are more African than some of us who have melanin. Believe that. Some of us with melanin are so blessed. But there are other people in the universe and in the world, on the earth, that can in fact do these wondrous things by using sound. I have here a copy of the Dictionary of Universal Symbols. And of course, some of the information here was given by Europeans, but a lot of it was also given by Afrocentric people. And I just wanted to give you a sampling of what some of that information is, and you can peruse this after I have finished lecturing. Now, I have here African deities, Catholic saints correspondences. In Brazil, Haiti, and a number of other Caribbean countries, the slaves and the people of color had a matching saint for every Catholic saint that was found in the pantheon of the Catholic Church. People said, well, why did they do that? They did it to hide their desire for freedom, and they did it to establish a dual system of worshiping so that they would not be penalized for going against the codes of the Catholic Church, and that they were able to continue to worship their gods or their deities without reprisals. Now, we have, what's today, Tuesday? Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. Okay. We have here the deities for Wednesday. Let's see, I need my little glasses. Let's see. Okay. Today is Wednesday. 2, 3. Okay. Today is Yemaya Day. Yemaya is the deity of the ocean. And people do devotional prayers to the goddess of the sea. We have Oya, the goddess of the wind, in the cemetery for Thursday. And let's see, we have Oshun, the deity of fresh water and beauty, and so forth. I'm going to let you peruse this when we finish. Now, it says, Cree is, that the African pantheon has a host of deities labeled male and female, and the personification of the forces of nature, called Abosun. Among the Yoruba, Orisha, Dahomey, they're also known as Voodoo, and they practice worship on a regular basis to allow people to manifest the spirits of these deities. For those who are interested, we might want to take a trip to a Voodoo service so that you will see how people who embrace traditional African religion are able to do so. It's important that we remove as many myths and misconceptions about our cultural heritage in terms of religion, because we are very spiritual people. Now, I also happen to have found out that in Korea, this is Korea, the same type of religious devotion to deities of the earth is practiced, and it is called, let's see, it'll come to me, but it's the same deities that African people worship, and they use the color schemes, the same color schemes that the Africans use, and similar songs, warrior deities, Mudong, that's what they call, Moodong, Mudong. Only the very wealthy people in Korea go to the Mudong. And if you come in contact with some Koreans and you ask them, do you know about the Mudong? They will smile and quietly move away from you, because they know that you know about the power of the Mudong, and that only rich people go to the Mudong because they're the ones that can afford the interaction, and there's sometimes considerable amounts of money involved in going to the Mudong. But they believe in spirit worship, and I happened to go to the shrine room of some of the members of the Unification Church when they were on 16th and Columbia Road. And in addition to their Christian sanctuary, they had a whole prayer temple in the back of the altar filled with ashes of their ancestors that they did prayers for. So people said, well, they said they were Christians. I said, yes, they are. But in the universe, everything is what? Everything is everything. So you can call a deity one thing, somebody else can call it another thing, but it's all the same. It's all one. I'm going to stop at this point and take some questions or comments if we have some. Does someone have the time? $107. Okay. Comment, question? Yes.
What's your take on deja vu?
Deja vu. Many spiritual people in the world believe in deja vu, and they believe in deja vu as a revisiting of spiritual forces to a given scenario that provided pleasure to the individual or to the individual's family or their associates. Now, you don't want to return to the scene of a tragedy. Some spirits do. you want to return to the scene of happiness. So that's how you get deja vu. You say, yeah, I think I've been here before, and I had a good time. I think I want to go back. And the spirit goes back. And people have been seen, just like the sacrilege of Lorton. I don't know how many of you know about Lorton Reformatory down in Virginia. But for a long time, they received prisoners from the District of Columbia. A lot of blood, a lot of tears, a lot of suffering went on in those buildings in Lorton. The European has renovated those buildings and turned them into art studios. Now, they have found an inordinate number of people who go down and go into those studios, either strangled or have their throats cut in those buildings. They want to know who's doing it. Well, it's the phantoms of all those men and some women who were incarcerated like animals in that prison on that land. Many people don't realize that spirits, as the bishop said, linger around. And they want to see you do good things, not bad things. So, yes, deja vu is quite real. You ask yourself where you get certain abilities from. People said, how did you learn how to do so-and-so? You said, I don't know, it just came to me. You know, I woke up one day and I could do this, or do that, or do the other. So it's important to encourage that, because I've seen children possessed by people. I've seen little girls possessed by their teachers. And they are always lining up all the little kids in the neighborhood and making them sit side by side and making them behave, and then they have a lesson. You said, well, where did that little girl learn that? You know, where did she get lining other kids up and teaching them? She was either a teacher in her previous life, or she had a viewing experience. People say, what's a viewing experience? Where you can look through the window or the portal from the spirit world to the physical world and learn things. So every time you come in this church, you're walking through a portal. It's like a time machine. And what you get, you use, and you take it back. Yeah.
I wanted to say, Archbishop, when he was little, that's what he was doing. He was teaching kids. He was the minister, and he would give the kids candy. I know his neighbors across the street, and they grew up with Bishop, and that's what he give them candy, and they sit, and he do a little sermon, and then he reward them with candy. That's when he was young, real young.
Mm-hmm.
I talk loud. I just want to thank you, Reverend, for taking me back to Gloria Temple. Because when you're born in North Carolina, you know things, but you don't know why you know it.
Uh-huh.
And when I walked into Yoruba Temple, you learn all the rest of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I started playing, and all of a sudden it just, and when you say Orisha, and when you say different names, I thank God for Mother Tara and all of those that taught me these things.
That's right.
And they still come, and I can be sitting here and all of a sudden she'll say, who's so and so? Or if it came in and said,
Mm-hmm.
so I know, I thank you. I thank you for, I've been trying to, but you can't, because with Yoruba Temple and Imani Temple,
Mm-hmm.
they're so close together that unless you've been there, you know, this temple is so much close
Mm-hmm.
to the one
one has to do the work that God has given them to do. And I had a counsel session with a person about a month or so ago, and they kept telling me, I'm just not happy. I'm just not happy. I said, are you doing what God asked you to do? I just can't do that. I said, oh, but you will. I said, you will do that. I said, and the reason you will do that, I said, is because that's why you're on the earth. You're not here to do what you want to do. You're here to do what God wants you to do. And He will let you know it, put you in the place to do it. And many people have come to me and says, well, how did you get into this and how did you? I said, I didn't get in to anything. God got in to me and caused me to want to do A, B, C, and D and bring people to understandings and whatever. And it's just like when God gives you a mission and you tell people about that mission and they stop and they think and then they say, maybe there is something to that because I've tried everything else and it doesn't work. I said, no, it's not going to work until you do what God wants you to do. It's just that simple. So we all have gifts, and that is one of the things I've always tried to do with the young people I work with, is actualize their personhood. I make over them. People say, you make over those children too much. I said, why? Well, as one of my drummers said, they ain't all that. You know, a bunch of ugly, whatever. And every time they come around, you calling everybody to say, come and say hi to so-and-so. Come and say hi to so-and-so. I said, well, when you come around, don't I do the same thing for you? Yeah, but that's different. I said, that's not different. I said, you know, you're funny looking too. Your arms are too long. You know, you got big ears. You know, and speak with a lisp and whatever. I said, so you would deny others the emulation that and the platitudes that I share with other people, you would deny it to them. Well, they ain't all that. I said, well, you're not all that either. But when you come in, I make sure that everybody comes to greet you and say hello. And I said, you know, it's okay if you're homely looking or you're ugly and your mother dressed you funny. It's all right. It's all right. And I said, you ask a lot of people around and they'll tell you the only place that I can feel like myself and feel at home is at Imani Temple or some place similar to Imani Temple. Brother Earl?
Yes, sir. I wanted to state with what you were saying about from the beginning, which was he owns the definition.
Owns the power.
Power.
Yes.
And I think that's continually going on even to today. But we have even the smallest of things, you know, people's hairstyles. It just the way we conduct ourselves, the way we speak, the way we do things. You know, our former oppressor or the people who've been trying to oppress us.
Yes.
Who are continually oppressing us. Have not relented. And so, and I have a something that I've always, and I have issue with, I can say issue, but I'm struggling with right now. According to the Bible, when Jesus, and this was a simple, when Jesus sat with the disciples in the Last Supper, and he asked them to drink this wine, which symbolized the blood, and to eat the unleavened bread, which symbolizes his broken body.
Mm-hmm.
It was a one-time thing, not every week. It was a one-time thing, and that was of symbolization.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the question to many people: why did the Catholic Church why didn't the Catholic Church follow the same pattern when it came to this form of, this form of ritual or this form of symbolization. You know what I mean? It's like the way Jesus did it was a cure. The way they did it is like a treatment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Keep coming in and getting your weekly fix. If you don't, and what I'm observing in the Bible, until each one of these people received him in spirit, they didn't receive it. Now, why haven't even the Roman Catholic Church, I know we have an opportunity here to do it, but why didn't the Roman Catholic Church, who initiated all of this, or the Catholicism,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't they follow the same pattern
Mm-hmm.
as the Christ?
Mm-hmm. Well, I asked an elder many years ago, I said, if religion is so deleterious
Mm-hmm.
to people's life and people are indoctrinated and used
Yes.
as slaves,
Yes, sir.
of what benefit is it to man?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if there were no religious projections on the planet, that the world would consume itself. He said the only thing that keeps human beings from eating themselves is God. Because when man enters the picture, he wants to do man things rather than God things. And as a result of that, you have a lot of horror that's created from human beings' egos. If you can get by the egos, then we are on our way to salvation, because we will refuse to do what other human beings do. We have to focus on the spirit and not the physical. And many people don't understand that. When they see someone, they're looking at a spirit. They're not looking at a physical entity. They're looking at a shell. And I tell them all the time, I said, that shell will decay if you don't take care of it. It's ultimately going to decay when you die. But if you don't take care of that shell, and above all, and the bishop did a sermon on charis, charis, charis as in charisma, that if you do not learn how to use your charisma for the betterment of life through God, you're going to destroy yourself, because you have the power to draw people to you. There's some men that says, I've never met a woman that could resist me. And the same thing for some women. I've never met a man that could resist me. All right? Now, those statements are made by someone that wears a size 14 shoe, and they're slew-footed. And you know who that is. Old Slewfoot himself. Now, Slewfoot will tell you, and he wears some mighty fine clothes. And I tell these poor little girls out here, I said, you're so beautiful and fresh and young. I said, but Slewfoot is looking for you. And if he can find you, he's going to turn you out. Well, I think I know what I'm doing. And blah, 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 and blah. You say, okay, but he doesn't have a tail, and he does not have horns. He wears a Brooks Brothers suit, size 14 shoe, and the shoes are shine. Hello. I said, and he will turn you out. So, charis, as in charisma, and many people recognize that ability in themselves, that they have the power to draw people. But you have a special responsibility when you have that blessing, because you can kill people, you can kill yourself by improperly using charis or charisma, because it's very, very powerful. Very powerful. And you have to know what you're doing when you're handling it, because if you don't handle it the right way, that's right. And the question is, and maybe somebody in the audience can answer this question. What
PROP.
what does it prove?
No, it keeps her from touching anyone.
It makes her have busy hands.
Yes, exactly. And you'll see that the royal family, all of them carry purses so that they don't have to touch people. But I wanted to say, in according to the discussion, that when you're talking about power, Hans Morgenthau had the best definition of power when he said that power is control over the minds of men. So when you have the minds of the men, you have everything. You have their money, you have their body, you have everything. So that's the ultimate definition amongst the definitions of power, is it is the control over the minds of men.
So
Also,
he who owns the definition definitely holds the power. Yeah.
exactly, I was just adding some of what you said. But I also wanted to ask you about colors and the vibrations, if they have vibrations. I've heard that colors have vibrations. And for me, with all of my conditioning and seeing the painting of these houses as gray and black, I would feel like if I was living in one of those houses, I would be encased in those colors. And to me, those colors for me are like gloomy. So I don't think that I would ever live in a black or a gray house. That's out. Maybe a yellow or a coral or something, a happy color. So I just wanted to know your wisdom about colors.
Without going to the university to get a college degree, even up to PhD, the children convey the true meanings of colors by way of their definition. Now, some people are not familiar with what we call child wisdom, because see, children have a wisdom of their own, and it has something to do with deja vu. It has something to do with the establishment of their spirit in the universe, because they all come with gifts. But children can tell you just what the definition of color is. The little girl came and said, "Mom," pointing at me, "he came to my school and they had on happy clothes." Happy clothes, she said. Yellow and orange and green and red. She said they were just so happy. Happy clothes. Another little boy came and said they were playing the drum and they had on strong men clothes. Strong men clothes. Now, when you listen to children defining you, then you know that you're being touched by spiritual forces that are defining you. It's not a human being, but it's a force in the universe. Gray houses and black houses do not fit the paradigm of happy clothes or strong, maybe some strong clothes, perhaps in terms of armor or that kind of thing. But if you ever notice soldiers in today's army wear a brown-green uniform. People say, well, that's camouflage. Yes, but brown is the color for Ochosi, the hunter.
Come on.
See, and the green is for life and also Oshosi. So it's about the earth
Yeah.
and the ground that they have the uniform colors. Now, during the Revolutionary War, when the British came, they had on red coats, and they could pluck them off easy because the coats were red and they had a good target.
That's right.
But I have to say, if you put on red and put red and black on there, don't nobody bother talking red about.
That's right. How many people here have heard somebody say Babalu?
I just heard it.
Babalu, Babalu. Babalu is Babalu Aye, the deity of healing. And the priests come from the shrine singing songs to Babalu Aye to heal people who are sick. They dance to Babalu Aye. They play drums to Babalu Aye. And it wasn't just a phrase that Ricky Ricardo said on the TV back in the day, but it was real. And I will tell you about Washington, D.C. in the 50s and 60s. People had been conditioned not to embrace anything African.
That's right.
But the closest they would get to Africa was Afro-Cubana, meaning Afro-Cuban. They would play conga drums, they would play the bell, the clave, they would play the shakere and whatever. But they would not mention Africa because they had been conditioned not to mention anything about Africa. So therefore, they had to wait until about 1972 when the first djembe came to this area. One of the stalwarts of that movement, Afro-Cuban movement, was held at the Casbah on U Street, next to Ben's next door. It's called Ben's next door now, but that was the Casbah. And we used to do all the Afro-Cuban dances, including the limbo, at this club. And I'm doing a piece with the students at Duke Ellington for the spring concert in May. They're doing Brown Girl in the Ring. And it's an old Caribbean song and dance coming from Ghana, from the Panlogo perspective, from the Ga people. And it's Brown Girl in the Ring, tra-la-la-la-la, Brown Girl in the Ring, tra-la-la-la-la. And the girls went home singing the song. And one girl came to me last week and she says, Baba Melvin, my mother was crying. I said, why? She said, because she remembers that song when she was a little girl. And she said, you're reviving it and we're going to dance it. I said, yes. She said, oh, it just brought back so many memories. She said, my mom and dad are from Trinidad. And she said, it brought back so many memories from my parents. So this is how culture and its continuity keeps us in touch with spirit and in touch with each other. Whether we see each other or not, prayer is powerful. Metaphysical perspectives are very powerful. And when people look at what it creates, some people get scared. But I tell you, don't get scared. There's nothing there that will hurt you. What will hurt you is on the street. Right out there. Right out there on the street will hurt you. Exactly. Comment or question? Adrian?
Oh wow. I have a comment.
Yes.
Um, I'm having a hard time differ differ yeah differ French. I got a few yeah. I, between African tradition religion and Christianity, and the reason why I say that is because growing up in the Catholic Church, I was taught to always think of saints as my helper. But as I got older, and studying the African tradition religion, now I'm now I'm being drawn to them being ancestors instead of saints, and it's hard for me to uh, tell the difference in the roles that they play on directing my life.
Well, I think first we can understand, notice I said we can understand that he who owns the definition owns the power. And you have been indoctrinated, as many, many, many people have, through perspectives of miseducation. When you look at traditional African religion and you see the parallels in the paradigm of the deities of the Orisha shrines and whatever, you find out that they're one and the same. It's called preservation. And black people were very creative in providing ways to survive. I saw a picture not long ago of a wealthy Brazilian planter. And on the picture was his wife, who was very fair-skinned, white. And then he had 4 brown-skinned women following him and 8 children and some men driving a coach. Now, what that said was, what the title said on the picture was, wealthy Brazilian planter on his way to church with wife and concubines, who would later come back out and go to the religious shrines of their ancestors to dance and sing and possess. And though the head maid in the house scrubbed floors during the day, at night she became a princess and sat in royal finery in the shrines and the temples of her ancestors. That saved us because it reminded us that we were royal people. Regardless of what the white man did to us, we were royal people. We're people of substance, people of wisdom and knowledge. If it hadn't been for the herbology that black people brought to the European, he wouldn't have been able to colonize around the world because the African gave him medicines, the Native Americans gave him medicines that he might continue to live. Because we already knew. They didn't know because they were living in caves when our people were living on the earth, or let's say living on top of the world. And they had no idea what the world was. Running around with an animal skin on, and we had on silks and satins and all that good stuff. And yet we are the ones that they say are uncivilized. So the definition of civilization is not technology, but it's how we treat each other.
Yes, sir.
If we're loving and kind to each other, we are civilized people. America has problems, and hopefully it will heal. But we are civilized people. And there are people in the world who are called barbarians, who really aren't barbarians. They're civilized, the way they treat people, even their enemies. Exactly. And you go to certain areas and you will find people who are supposed to be violent enemies sitting down to eat with each other. I saw this in Ghana, where some tribal people from the Akan sat down with the airway people and ate. I said, but somebody said they were arch enemies. They said, yeah, they are. I said, well, how can they sit down and eat with each other? They said, well, what they do is they put all that evil stuff aside. And they sit down and eat and fellowship and laugh and sing and whatever. And when all that's over, it's now, I know you.
The politicians do the same thing.
Yes. Politicians do the same thing. I know you, snakes. Dr. Lee. Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I personally enjoy these sessions on Wednesday because we share so much knowledge with each other and it sends us home with something to think about. You know, if we could get more people to think about spirit rather than things, then we'd have a richer society. We wouldn't have people going around what we call broke neck syndrome, where their head is down and they're looking at their video games and their phones and whatever, but they'll walk around with their head up and speak to people and talk to people and learn some things. So that's how I work with young people, is telling them stories about real things. You know, not all that Dungeon and Dragon stuff. And the people who are watching by live stream, I hope you enjoy our sessions as well. And you should write the bishop and send him a letter and express in that letter how you feel about some of the things that, good things and bad things that Imani Temple does that you take advantage of. So I'm hoping that you will write to 2420 Brooks Drive, Suitland, Maryland, and what's the zip code here? 20746. And you can write letters, and we'd be happy to receive them, and we will respond because you deserve a response to your interest in what we're doing. So God bless you. God bless you all. Have a nice afternoon. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you make the announcement? Come, come. For Brother Gilchrist. Yes, we can. Okay. Can we stand, please?
And the blessing for Dale.
Dale Johnson.
Yes, her.
Right. Can we? Mother, Father, God, we thank you for this afternoon. We thank you for the knowledge that we have been able to bring forth to uplift your people. We thank you for their life. We thank you for their dedication to this ministry. We ask that you would bless Brother Milton Gilchrist as he lay in the hospital sick. We ask that you would give him strength, help him to overcome, Lord. We ask that you would bless his wife and his children and all of his family and give them strength in their bereavement. We ask a special blessing for Miss Dale Johnson and Mr. Johnson. We ask that you would lift her up, turn her around and place her feet on solid ground. We ask that you would bless her family as well. Come, comfort them, give them a warm feeling of love, a warm feeling of concern. We ask that you would come and be with us. These and all good things we ask in the name of Jesus Christ, and let all say amen.
Amen.